Hello, everybody, and welcome to White Lash Radio. I'm your host, Jeffrey Danger. So, we've got some changes to announce. I was discussing with Mama Danger about the name of my radio show, White Lash Radio. So, with the name, I've tried to be edgy, tried to be hip, tried to be cool, conservative, interesting, funny. But Mama Danger is saying that White Lash Radio is racist, and I listen to Mama Danger. My mother, Mama Danger, I listened to her. So I sat down with my marketing team. It's led by my brother Alex Danger, and we discussed the name. We decided to change the name of the program to Jeff Danger Radio. And so you can still send me emails at whitelashradio@gmail.com. We will be announcing a new email address at a later date. So again, moving forward, the name of the radio program is going to be Jeff Danger Radio. So you'll be able to access it in all the same venues. So anyways, on to the program. Arnold and Donald are feuding again. It all started, if you remember, on October 8, 2016, when Arnold tweeted out, "I'm a cybernetic organism, living tissue over metal endoskeleton." Sorry, guys, that was the wrong tweet. Here's the correct tweet. "For the first time since I became a citizen in 1983, I will not vote for the Republican candidate for president. Like many Americans, I've been conflicted by this election. I still haven't made up my mind about how exactly I will vote next month. I've been a proud Republican since I moved to America in 1968. And I heard Nixon's words about getting the government off our backs, free trade, and defending our liberty with a strong military. The day I joined the party of Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, and Ronald Reagan." So, ladies and gentlemen, Arnold Schwarzenegger decided in 1983 to become a Republican because of Nixon's leadership. So the Donald is not inspiring Arnold like Nixon did. So I think this is the beginning of their feud, and I would like to follow up with the words that the Donald had at the prayer breakfast.
But we had tremendous success on The Apprentice, and when I ran for president, I had to leave the show. That's when I knew for sure I was doing it. And they hired a big movie star, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to take my place. And we know how that turned out. The ratings went right down the tubes. It's been a total disaster. And Mark will never, ever bet against Trump again. And I want to just pray for Arnold if we can for those ratings, okay?
It seems like the audience ate it up. I mean, there's an argument to be made that the prayer breakfast should be I guess a holy occasion. It should be somewhere where you pray and you talk about faith and family and all that religious stuff. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I don't think the Donald is Mr. Religious. Thinking back to 2 Corinthians and when he said that The Art of the Deal is the second best book, just only behind the Bible. So Arnold had his own response. Arnold said that maybe I should become the president of the United States because people won't be less worried, or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. I think we've learned a lot about the Donald's leadership style and also his political strategizing. I'm going to go ahead and theorize that the Donald is going to continue to have controversy after controversy. I think that's what's going on with his executive orders. Each time he releases an executive order, it's like a new controversy. And instead of soul searching like the left should be, they're responding with protesters that they have basically in their back pocket. I have a kind of a personal story. When Governor Scott Walker was being when he was going through his recall. I was actually in Wisconsin on other business, just seeing a friend and visiting with them, and we did go to the capital of Wisconsin. And I noticed that there was buses and buses and buses and buses from all over the country. So hundreds of protesters had been bused, and I think we know who's paying for it. It's organizations funded by George Soros, who pays for their expenses, and sometimes some of these protesters are actually paid to go. They're paid for their time to go protest, and a lot of these events lead to violence. So at some point, I'm not sure, but if you are funding a protest, so it's you're paying people to go and you're giving them money for transportation and for food, and they cause violence. At what point is that conspiracy to commit a crime? I'm all for free speech, but at the same time, is it free speech if you're being paid to go somewhere? Isn't that more like a job? But the same thing I noticed in Washington, D.C. when me and Alex Danger were there. We saw rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of tour buses, and outpours the protesters with their signs and fascist, KKK, and all this nonsense. If you see video from the Berkeley protests, you'll notice that some of the Berkeley protesters didn't know who they were protesting. They were there ostensibly to protest Milo Yiannopoulos, but if you see them in video when they're confronted about it, they don't know who actually was speaking. And the mob was actually assaulting protesters and beating them, and some of them, if you see videos of the events, they actually had sticks and flagpoles and things that can be used as weapons. One MMA fighter, you've probably heard about it, Jake Shields, rescued a guy who's getting beat up, and then he actually tweeted a video of him arguing with the masked man.
Fucking fascists. Look at you guys. It's fucking damn right, Jews. Free speech, man. You guys are fucking up the dictionary. How much you hate? I'm trying to make sure you're okay. I didn't touch that. I mean, another guy. I'm not like 20 people jump a guy. I'll get my ass to live if I have to, man. It's not okay.
The fucking Nazi thing at the fucking university. That's why everybody's here.
So why do you have to wear a mask?
What Nazi thing? Who's a Nazi? The Jew guy that was speaking? The gay Jew?
He's Greek. And it's not him, it's the people that come to see him.
If he's gonna come in to a space, he knows what's
50 people chasing him and running away. He's covered.
Yeah, he's not a Jew, guys. He's not a Jew. He's a Greek. So just so you know, it's okay to gang up on people and beat them up for. Now there wasn't a pro-Trump counter-protest. There was actually people going there to see Milo Yiannopoulos. He was going to speak about I think the subject was going to be Halloween costumes. He said he was going to go there in a Native American headdress, which he had spared no expense in creating, and talk about whether it's appropriate to have certain costumes, certain Halloween costumes, and the controversy surrounding it. So you have Milo, and he probably had maybe 50 to 100 people listening to his spiel, and then there was hundreds of protesters. And you've listened to the one protester. He's saying it's the Nazi thing. They don't know what's going on. They don't know the guy's name. They've never heard of him. They never listened to anything that he said. But he's a Nazi. On the View, in response to the Berkeley protests, Whoopi Goldberg discusses how even if you disagree with a speaker, it's okay to protest, but it's never okay to jump people and hurt them and destroy property. Now, I think Joy Behar was a little confused. In Cuba, where she frequents, they actually, if you say something that the regime disagrees with, the people actually are murdered and put in jail as political prisoners. In this system, currently we have Donald Trump, who is in power, and you can see Joy Behar is a little confused because Whoopi's kind of is chastising the protesters, and Joy Behar is having trouble because Whoopi's one of the other resident liberals.
You're not helping.
Yeah.
You're not helping because you are burning people's businesses. You are setting people back. What the hell, man?
Yeah.
Protest all you want to. Stop messing with people stuff.
But let's talk about whether he has a right to protest, to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I just said everybody has the right to
Well,
speak.
I think everyone has a right to speak, but basically, when I was in college, they really vetted people who were going to speak. There were, maybe the people like
Ahmadinejad.
JFK would
There were safe zones.
to the school. You know what I mean? It wasn't just some troll on the internet,
But
which
this-
is what this guy basically
He
is.
is that, but that is not.
Don't
he-
think
He was invited,
Well,
though.
don't say his name,
because I don't think he
don't
deserves
say-
any more press.
But he
This guy's
was
a-
invited by the Republicans,
By the
the young
Republicans, right.
Republican
The
club.
Berkeley
I'm just saying, I'm the First Amendment person here. I really believe in it.
As long as I agree with what you're saying.
But this guy, why they invite this guy?
Yeah, but
you know
he,
that-
he has been banned from Twitter. He made horrible comments against Leslie Jones from SNL.
Yes.
He said at least the new Ghostbusters has a hot black guy in it, meaning her. Now, here is hate speech. It's speech that offends, threatens, or insults groups based on race, color, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, disability. So he's a sexist.
Yes.
He's a
Joy,
racist.
if
why should he be
it is
invited?
Once you have that label, ladies and gentlemen, they want to take away any right that you have to speak your mind, to speak in front of an audience, to appear before students. They're all for free speech as long as they agree with what you're saying and as long as it's not controversial from a left-leaning point of view.
Listen, that is not our thing to control. If they want to invite him, that's fine. You don't have to go see him.
Yeah,
you don't have to go
right.
see him, but you cannot.
It's a slippery
You can
slope
say
when you
we're
start
going to
cutting off.
protest.
I agree with
We
that.
can protest outside, but you don't have to go in, but you don't have the right to destroy other people's stuff.
And what's ironic about it is that Berkeley, I agree with you 100%. Berkeley was the home of free speech. Berkeley was the place where free
Yes.
speech fights started.
They didn't like
and
it
what
then,
these
believe
people
me.
don't realize, though, is if you start objecting to everyone that you disagree with, then next the person you
It's
like, you're
not
going to have
just
people
that,
coming out.
Jed.
You can't.
The
that's
guy's
because people
the
don't
guy's
want
a
to listen,
racist
though.
homophobe.
But if
Come on.
he's a racist.
He's a racist homophobe that openly sleeps with black men. So, again, the left is woefully uninformed. They don't know who they're protesting. They don't know any details on what they're protesting. For instance, with Trump's immigration ban, I have some issue with some of the ban because it did ban people that were green card holders. I think that if you're a green card holder already, you should be allowed to come in. Presumably that's a legal document that basically says you are allowed to come in. But as far as refugees go, it costs about $60,000 per refugee to settle. So that's $60,000. I mean, it takes a person who's making six figures, like 5 or 6 years to pay that kind of money in taxes. So every one of these people that come in, you have to take that money away from somewhere else. And at what point are we saying, maybe we need to prioritize better just from a organizational standpoint? And I think it's reasonable to ask, if you're taking in refugees, what do they believe? And is it consistent with what your values are, your Western values, quote unquote, are? And, I'm not 100% sure exactly what Western values are. I mean, I think different people in the West have different values. In America, I think we value patriotism more than in European countries. We value individualism and freedom from the government more than European countries. But I believe, and personally I believe, that if you leave your religion, you should not be executed. Now, the Pew Research poll in 2012 show that in Middle East and North Africa, 56% of the people there believe in executing people who leave Islam. In South Asia, it's 76%. Southeast Asia, it's 27%. In Central Asia, it's 16%. And in Southern and Eastern Europe, it's 13%. And in my mind, that's a form of radicalism, wanting to execute people who leave your religion. That would be against our values. So if you're taking people from the Middle East and in North Africa, where the refugees are coming from, 1 out of every 2 people believe that if you leave Islam, you should be executed. So do we want to allow those kind of ideas into our country? And I think some of you are probably thinking, well, I'm not Muslim and I kind of don't care if they execute Muslims who leave the religion. So I'm looking at the Pew poll out of 2012, the Pew survey, and they asked questions of Muslims in different countries. So they have different behaviors and what do Muslims feel. So across the board, across the world, 8 out of 10 Muslims think homosexuality is wrong. The lowest in all of the Muslim regions is 60%, and up to 93% of Southeast Asian Muslims and 72% of Middle East and North African Muslims believe abortion is wrong. Sex outside marriage, it's 60%. So some of these are consistent with Christian religion. I mean, Christians don't believe homosexuality is right. But they also believe in Sharia law, a lot of them, and that would include believing that homosexuality is wrong and then people that practice it should be executed. So if you have Middle East and North Africans, about half of them believe in instituting Sharia law, and that would include executing gay people. So 1 out of every 2 refugees that are coming over believe in executing gay people. So myself as a gay man, I'm paying $60,000. So somebody that thinks they should be able to execute me can be resettled. For me, that's pretty wrong. I mean, I'm already a little bit upset that I have to pay for people's birth control on my medical plan, but that does not even pale in comparison to paying for somebody to live here, to be resettled here, who thinks that I should be killed. And how about the common practice of making your wife wear a black burlap sack over her body, or I guess you could call it like a ninja outfit? I think they're called burqas, covering your face because it might make men horny. About 80% of the Muslim world believes that. Now there is a bright light. Most Muslims in the world do not think suicide bombing is justified. But it is about, on average, 10% in Middle East and North Africa where refugees are coming over. So 7% of Iraqis believe that suicide bombing is often, sometimes justified. 12% of Tunisians, 15% of Jordans, 9% of Moroccans, 29% of Egyptians, and 40% of Palestinians believe that sometimes suicide bombing is justified. So I think it goes without saying that leftist ideology requires people to suspend their intelligence. So if you actually look at facts and data, you look at risk reward, I think that immigration, it can be rewarding for an economy. Immigration is a good thing. It can be a good thing. It can bring in innovators. It can bring workers. It can people that come here, they start a business and they grow the economy, and we all benefit. And our children go work for their businesses, and there's more loans going out and helping the economy and the pie grow. That's fine. But if you have 1 out of 10 people coming in that believe that suicide bombing is okay, half of them think women should be covered up. If these things are, half of them believe that gays should be executed, these things are irreconcilable with our society. And if you cannot solve these problems, if Islam doesn't solve the problems, then why on earth should we be spending money to resettle refugees. And a lot of them, they come over, they say they're from Syria, but if you're from Syria, you don't have any documents to support that because the government is so messed up and they're in a state of civil war. So if you're from another country and you want to go to Europe because of their generous welfare state, then you say you're from Syria and you can emigrate that way, and there's no proper way to vet them. So if we decide as a society that some views are incompatible, and religion is the hardest thing to shake for people. If you grow up with believing certain things religiously, you're not going to come over to America or France and be swayed by French pop music and cultural norms. You're going to hold on to those Islamic beliefs, and you might rent a truck and run over 50 to 100 people. And liberalism as an ideology is, I believe it's very emotional. I think sometimes liberals can't get out of their own way. So at times I like to watch Bill Maher's show. Sometimes it makes me angry, so I enjoy kind of hate watching it. At other times he has interesting guests. He often has a guy named Sam Harris on his show. Now most of what Sam Harris says is actually pretty intelligent, and they're both politically left. Bill Maher claims to be a libertarian, but he's supported Barack Obama. He famously gave Barack Obama $1 million for his campaign. Sam Harris is a neuroscientist and somewhat of an expert on the Muslim culture. Liberals have a tendency towards cultural relativism. There are bad things in America. There are bad things that Westerners have done in the past. We wiped out a whole people. Now, the left says that Westerners, Europeans, wiped out the Indians using germ warfare, but you could argue that Europeans didn't really know very much about germs and the modern things that we understand. So Sam Harris and Bill Maher had an interview with Sam Harris that runs about 13 minutes, and they're discussing Trump's quote-unquote blanket ban. It has often been referred to as a Muslim ban. The ban covers 7 states, specifically Iraq, Syria, Sudan, Iran, Somalia, Libya, and Yemen. The Trump administration does not believe that those countries have the infrastructure to provide information about the people that are immigrating. When you immigrate from another country, you have to provide, if you immigrate normally from another country, you don't claim refugee status or oppression from a group because of who you are. In the immigration law, let's say you're like a gay Saudi Arabian, you can come over to the United States, claim that you're persecuted because of who you are, or if you're a Christian in a Muslim country where Christians have been executed, you can come over to the United States and claim that you're a refugee. You can claim a special refugee status because of your persecution. Trump is claiming that in Iraq, Syria, Sudan, Iran, Somalia, Libya, and Yemen, they don't have the infrastructure to provide that kind of information. About 200 people were affected by the ban. A lot of them have been let in. And the left has referred to the ban as a Muslim ban. I think that you could honestly argue the merits of a Muslim ban. To me, it doesn't sound that crazy to ban new immigrants from Muslim countries if those immigrants take ideas that are against our values and were not successful in changing their ideas. But that's not what he did. And he's halted the Syrian refugee program. Syrians are, quote-unquote, Syrians are flocking into Germany, France. France has France itself has 20% of its population is Muslim, and they are having babies at a higher rate than Europeans have like one baby per couple. The European population is actually shrinking, and the Muslim population is growing. Muslim immigrant families, especially, have like 5 or 6 babies, so their population is growing a lot faster. And millions of Syrians are being taken in by Germany, by France. A lot of the Syrians that are coming in, they don't have any information, so they're probably not all from Syria. A lot of them are from Afghanistan. A lot of them are from Iraq, Iran, other places. But so I watched Sam Harris and Bill Maher on Bill Maher's show talk about Trump's ban, and they're against the ban. I think Sam Harris is actually pretty rational on the Muslim problem.
Religions, right? If the Scientologists were practicing suicide bombings in dozens of countries,
right?
If they were killing people for drawing pictures of L. Ron Hubbard, right?
Right.
Tom Cruise would have more to answer for than he does, right? And he's got a fair amount to answer for. If the Mormons were trying to kill Trey Parker and Matt Stone over their Broadway play, okay,
right,
we would lose our patience for Mormonism, right?
It's funny because Muslim terrorists do this shit.
So it's a massive double standard here, but this is the needle we have to thread, and this is the problem you and I have been getting into for 15 years. We have to, on the one hand, acknowledge that there are valid criticisms of misuses of American power and colonialism, and we want to help refugees, right? These people in Syria are the unluckiest people in the world.
Like, I want to help refugees, but I'm not like, I don't want to help them as much as like I want a Canada Goose parka. I mean, it's like maybe 15% of a Canada Goose parka is about how much I want to help them. But don't hit me up for money.
Right, and if they don't pose a security concern, we should welcome them into our society, right? We don't want to look at the Statue of Liberty and think, but
yeah, I think we should get rid of that poem on the Statue of Liberty. When you immigrated to the United States in 1890, they said, "Welcome to America, have a nice day." They didn't get $60,000 worth of welfare payments, food stamps, and the government provided them barely anything. So if you want to take people in, are you comfortable seeing them starve to death? No, obviously. So obviously you have to pay for them. But there are people all over the world that are suffering. There's people that are in China suffering. They're suffering just like Syrian immigrants are suffering. They're not getting enough food. They're impoverished, malnutritioned. Maybe we should take them. They don't have any particular radicalism. They just want to feed their family. Maybe we should take more people from China. Maybe we should take more people from France who have perhaps, the French that have lived in some of these areas that turned into no-go zones. So they've been displaced. Maybe we should welcome them to our country, and they can come here and flourish.
But also, you're not automatically a racist if you have concerns about assimilation.
Exactly.
Because of the ideas that we're talking about, there are sometimes assimilation problems. I don't think we have a lot of that in America because...
Well, but because we've been lucky with these two oceans, right? And so we have to acknowledge that Europe has a problem we don't want to have.
It's America. People, if a Muslim here in America wants to take off the thing, she can.
Yeah.
And she's she can do that without...
Now that is if her husband doesn't beat her until she's dead.
Without fear of someone beating her for it. I mean, if someone wants to come out of the closet here in America, if someone wants to marry a non-Muslim, these are not options available to vast amounts of Muslims in the world.
Including Muslims in Germany and France.
So let's address the question that they're saying now, who hate us, which is you paint with too broad a brush, because we mentioned some of these things.
Right.
And I don't think, we paint with a brush. It's neither too broad.
There's a phenomena among liberals called cultural relativism. We have different cultures. Some cultures believe in genital mutilation. Some cultures believe you should wear a potato sack over your body because you create impure impulses in men. And some cultures believe women should be able to drive and to vote.
We're painting with statistics, right? I mean,
Right.
like you're talking about 43% of this and 78% of
Yes.
this. And on any specific question, these numbers can move around, but the numbers are never consoling, right? When you ask the Muslims in the
Right.
UK whether you want to live under Sharia law, right, or whether the Danish cartoonist should be imprisoned, right, you don't get the tiny numbers you would hope to get,
Right.
And that's a problem that we have to speak honestly about. And just as you just said, you don't have to be a fascist.
So Sam Harris is speaking an incredible amount of sense, and then he says at the same time we should continue to take refugees. I don't understand why. Why do we have to prove to the world that our hearts are so big? I mean, we have a country, we have a border around the country, and we have a right to choose who we want to allow in. And you should choose people who are going to be a net positive to your country. And if you have information about them, it's like if you have 5 crashes in your record and you have a half a dozen tickets on your driving record, your insurance goes up. So we need to insure against having Syrian immigrants by not allowing them to come over.
Or a racist or even a Trumpian to not want to import people into your society who think cartoonists should be killed for drawing the profit, right? That's a totally rational thing not to want. And the left has been demonizing anyone who will talk about this.
Right, and I would say to you, finally, asking you, what is the proper liberal response? And I think it begins with, yes, understanding that we are never going to defeat terrorism if we don't reform Islam.
Yes.
And we are not going...
So there's a white guilt complex, there's a white savior complex that liberal white people have. They think they can go into minority communities and change how they think. Muslims aren't going to change because Bill Maher wants them to change or because Sam Harris wants them to change. They're going to change because Muslims want them to change, and you don't have to bring them here if they have radical ideas. You don't have to bring anybody you don't want to bring. I mean, I understand that it's messy to have a religious test, but at the same time, if half of Saudi Arabians think that if you leave Islam you should get murdered, maybe we shouldn't be importing those people. You can bring over people from other countries that don't have these crazy ass ideas, because you're not going to change them. There's something about religion that is like in your DNA. You're not going to change people's beliefs unless they want to. And you can't send some goofy liberal into a radical mosque and have them change how those people feel.
to reform Islam if we can't talk about it.
And if Muslims can't talk about it.
And Muslims can't.
If we don't encourage, empower,
Right.
and
So Sam Harris and Bill Maher are saying we as Westerners are not the people to reform Islam, and I don't think we're capable of it, and I don't think we should really endeavor to. That's up to them. If they want everybody to wear a potato sack on their head, that's their business. But we don't have to welcome them into our country. And at the same time, the leftist elite are not the ones that are going to have to deal with it. If you look at what's happened in other countries, and you can look at Germany and you can look at France as America down the road if we continue those policies. I think Trump is very sensible in what he's doing, but if you continue to allow unfettered immigration in your country, you're going to have areas that are like uninhabitable for normal Westerners. In the United Kingdom, like in some areas, if you're walking around from back to your apartment with a six-pack, you have people from the local mosque that are saying, hey, you can't have alcohol here, we're covered under Sharia law. So if the beliefs of the people that are coming over are stronger, they hold them in higher regard than, say, free speech and individual liberty. I don't think you're going to be able to say, hey, these are our ideas. Why don't you lose all that shit you were taught since you were 3 months old? And we need to recognize that in our immigration policy. Thank you so much for listening to Jeff Danger Radio. We will be back on February 20th for our President's Day episode. Again, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.